control again? Okay. Welcome everybody to the Architectural Site Control Commission meeting for Monday, June the 12th, 2023. We have two meetings on our agenda this evening, but beforehand, we'd like to call to order and do a roll call.
Great, thank you. And I'll be participating on behalf of Laura tonight. She is unfortunately unable to make it. And my name is Jake Garcia. I'm a consultant planner for the town. And I'll go ahead and get started with that roll call. So Commissioner Chung, here. Commissioner Breen, here. Commissioner Wilson, here. And Commissioner Sill, here. And Commissioner Flynn is absent.
All right, and I believe that I am chairing the meeting this evening, and Commissioner Sill will be vice chair for when I need to recuse myself. Right, I'll open all communications. This is the opportunity for any persons wishing to address the Architectural and Site Control Commission on any subject not on the agenda, and so they may do so now. Please note, however, that the Architectural and Site Control Commission are not able to undertake extended discussion or action tonight on items that are not on our agenda. So I'll open public comment.
Great. If there's anyone in the audience, which it looks like it's all project-based members, you may speak now, come up to the podium. And not seeing anyone virtually have their hand up for comments. So last call for comments from the virtual attendees.
All right, in that case, I'll close oral communications and move on to the first item of new business, for which I need to recuse myself immediately and leave the room because it's within 300 yards of our home. So I will hand over to Commissioner Sill for this portion of the meeting.
So you'll just be outside?
I'll be outside.
Okay, yeah, we'll look for you in a few minutes. All right, so the item that we have here is the architectural review for a vehicular entry gate at 145 Lane, the Selden residence. And I think Thomas is going to give us a quick overview on this project.
That is correct. Thank you. So I'm here today with Greg Klein, the project architect for 145 Fawn, this vehicular entry gate. Let me start my presentation. All right, I believe this is visible for everybody. So this is an architectural review for a vehicular entry gate at 145 Fawn, the Selden residence. A little background to why this is being presented here today at the ASCC. As indicated in section 1842, 16C, entryway features are subject to the following limitations, which includes entry features that require a building permit are subject to approval of ASCC. It should be noted that the ASC's historical interpretation of this section of the municipal code is that all entryway gates, regardless of electrification, supporting structures, and any other qualifying conditions must be brought to the ASCC. So that's why it's here today. From this slide, we can see the vicinity map of 145 Fawn. That green star indicates the rough area where the driveway entry gate would be. On the left, you can see a little bit of general statistics for the property, including the zoning, which is residential estate 1 acre with slope density 1A, that's the zoning district. The parcel size is slightly less than 90,000 square feet at 2.02 acres. Average slope being 33.6%, either usually or mostly due in fact to the rear yard and the front yard approaching the main residence. And lastly, only residential units or uses exist along the property or around the property rather. This slide shows the proposed location for the entry gate. It will be on the front driveway at the front yard. It will be a total of 14 feet in length to accommodate the driveway. It will be a maximum of 4 feet in height. As all entry gates must qualify underneath, our municipal code determines or suggests that all entry gates must be set back at least 1/2 of the front setback. Being that this is in the 1 acre zoning district, the front setback would be 50 feet. So as we can see here from the image, it is 25 feet away from the front setback or front property line, making it compliant with the town's ordinance. It will also be connecting to an existing retaining wall, which follows parallel to the driveway up to the main residence. The applicant has also shared some images from Google Maps, which show show the driveway approach and showing how it will be kind of hidden away from the main road at Fawn Lane through vegetation and the natural slope of the driveway. The entry gate would really only be visible by going northwest down Fawn Lane. The proposed metal entry gate is 4 feet in height, 14 feet in width, and is a double outswing style. The entry gate is electronically operated with call boxes at the entry and exit. The exit call box being fixed to the retaining wall. The entry gate will be painted a natural greenish gray color, that Benjamin Moore 1531, which does not exceed the town's 40% reflectivity requirement. No lighting or additional landscaping has been proposed for this project. The entry gate has been reviewed and approved by the Woodside Fire Protection District as well. Additionally, the applicant has also shown compliance with the 50% opacity requirement for fences within front yards. That can be seen by the image or the supporting documents with our staff report. Just more images of the proposed design this way from a profile view showing the call box and the width of the gate. Notice for the public meeting was mailed out on June 2nd of 2023 to neighbors within a 300-foot radius of Fawn Lane or 145 Fawn Lane. No public comments were received. Vehicular entry gates are governed by the same ordinances as fences here in Portola Valley as seen with this findings of approval for fences. Findings for approval for fences or entry gates will be consideration for the open space tradition in Portola Valley, using sparingly to preserve a sense of shared scenic resources, respect for movement of wildlife, and natural materials that blend in with the rural atmosphere of the town. This concludes my presentation. I recommend that ASCC should consider staff's report and presentation along with applicants' comments and public comments for this fence permit application. Staff has included draft conditions of approval, which is attachment 1, if the ASCC wishes to approve the proposal. Now with my presentation concluded, I will give it to Greg Klein, the project architect, if you would like to add anything more. Greg, if you will.
I'm just here to answer questions. If anyone has any questions about the design.
All right, great. Okay, any questions for either Greg or Thomas? Thank you, Thomas.
The height of the retaining wall. Anything on the other side?
I couldn't hear that if that was directed to me.
Sorry, the first question was, what is the height of the retaining wall?
It's roughly 2 feet 6 inches high, I believe. It varies a little bit along the driveway.
And on the other side of the gate, from the retaining wall, does it attach to anything aside from its own supporting post?
There will be a post which you saw in the drawing, that will have a footing under it. And then, there will be a fence. That's a separate application that will connect to the gate.
And how high is that fence?
I believe it's gonna be 4 feet high, 4 feet high.
Which continues on the other side from the retaining wall?
Well, it's not on one side, yeah, and then under the ADU, there was a fence. But it's 4 feet and it's
Thank you. That's all the questions I have.
no question.
Okay, no questions from me either. So let's open up for public comment. Does anyone in the public have any questions or comments on the retaining or on the new proposed gate? Let's see, do you see anybody?
Not seeing anyone raise their hands in the audience virtually. If anyone virtually would like to speak, please raise your hand now and we'll promote you to speak. And there's no one in the room who would like to make a public comment. I'm still seeing no hands.
All right, let's bring it back here. We'll close public comment and bring it back up here and discuss. Okay, Kenny, you got a comment?
I think it was pretty minimal. It shows an effort to comply with this. In terms of view, it seems to obstruct the view of the driveway. So that's, I'm willing to hear the opinion of my fellow commissioners, but my inclination.
Okay, Dan?
I'm ready to jump in and just make a motion to approve
Okay.
as submitted.
Okay, and is there a second to that? Okay, let's vote.
Not
All
that
in
I don't
favor?
want to hear it out.
Aye.
I agree with Dan. I
Okay.
think we're ready to vote on it. It's very
Move
straightforward.
this baby along.
Good proposal. Okay.
You have a second?
and
All in
in
favor?
Oh, I'm sorry, before we do that, we should open it up to, do we open this item up to a public comment?
Okay, so let's vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay,
I'm gonna go get Jane.
passes 3-0. All right, great.
Ready.
Good job, Thomas.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, for my first one.
Yeah. Hard to believe, but we managed to work through it without you.
All right,
Turn it back over to you and start 350.
all right, and so we're moving on now to the second item on our agenda for new business this evening, which is the architectural review of a new residence, a detached garage, detached guest house, a site development permit, significant tree removal, fencing and landscape improvements for 350 Grove Drive, the Eng and Kim residence. So if you'd like to come forward and sit, or whoever's going to speak to us, and settle down. And then
Great, and then I'll go ahead and give the presentation,
presentation.
and I'll pull up the slides for us.
Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Jake Garcia. I'm the consultant planner for the town of Pacola Valley. This item before you tonight is an architectural review and site development permit for a new residence, detached garage, a guest house, landscape improvements, and a significant tree removal at 350 Grove Drive. Today we had a site visit and 3:45, and I want to put that in the record. 350 Grove is a 2.23 acre lot, zoned residential estate. It's an irregular shaped lot located on Grove Drive. The property is surrounded on all sides by single family residential. The site has an overall average slope of 14%. The western side of the property is located at the bottom of a slope, and Corte Madera Creek roughly runs along south, east, and northeast side of the property. An existing residence, garage, pool house, and shed are located on a relatively flat portion of the site between the existing slope and creek setbacks. Parcel is subject to a 45-foot creek setback shown in blue and a conservation easement shown in green. The purpose of the conservation easement is for the protection of vegetation, terrain, natural waters, drainage, and wildlife. The building envelope for the site is shown in red. The applicant is proposing to construct a new 4,223 square foot, two-story residence, a 700 square foot detached garage, and a 633 square foot detached guest house. The proposed project is compliant with the town's floor area requirements. The existing impervious surface of the site is 4,110 square feet. The proposed project would increase the total impervious surface to the maximum allowed of now 9,219 square feet. The proposed project consists of major landscape improvements, including a new driveway, court, and gravel driveway, site paths, site walls, retaining walls, a pool, and new landscaping throughout. The project site development permit will also require ASCC approval. There's the breakdown of floor area and impervious surface. Jumping over to the elevations for the building, here's the front elevation and the rendering of the main residence. Here's the left elevation of the residence. This would be viewed from the creek side. Here's the right elevation viewed from the bottom of the slope. Here's the rear elevation. And here are the elevations for the garage. On your top row, you have the front elevation facing inward to the drive court, and the right elevation, which is built into the hillside. On the lower row, you have the west elevation also built into the hillside, and the rear elevation, which is built into the hillside. Up next is the guest house. You'll see on the top is the front and the bottom is the rear. And it also shows proximity to the proposed pool and spa. And here's the right and left elevation for the guest house. This would be also showing its proximity to the pool. Moving right along to the materials and colors. The proposed materials and colors would be consistent with the town's design guidelines and light reflectivity values. The proposed project would consist of stucco siding and Benjamin Moore Iron Mountain color. It's LRV of 10.96 and Benjamin Moore Greystone color, LRV 30.5. Fascia trim, garage door, and entry gate are proposed to be painted in a Benjamin Moore tricorn black color, which has an LRV of 3. All doors and windows are to be a dark bronze anodized color, and the roof is to consist of a gravel ballast over a Class A gray TPO roof membrane, 4 skylights. Those skylights are proposed over the main entry foyer and upper story bathrooms. Here's the proposed landscape plan. The proposed project would increase the total impervious surface to the maximum allowed. That's 9,219 square feet. The landscape structural improvements include a new driveway, driveway gate, driveway auto court, site paths, patio areas near the main residence and pool area, site walls, and a driveway court retaining wall. The project has existing fencing and is proposed to remain and includes a 3-foot split rail wood fence to the left of the driveway entry labeled in green, a 6-foot wood wire fence on the left side of the driveway along the property line up until just about the creek before it drops off down the slope to the creek. A 4-foot wood wire split fence is located on the right side of the driveway entry. It's labeled in orange on your screen, and a 3-foot barbed wire fence is located along the property line where the property begins to widen, and that's labeled in red. No new fencing is being proposed at the project. New full site development requires bringing fencing into conformance with the town's municipal code. The town staff has included a condition of approval that requires a final fencing plan to be reviewed by town staff for conformance with the town's municipal code or ASCC approval. Since the project site is uniquely shaped, strict application of the town's municipal code related to fences may not capture all relevant considerations. The ASCC should consider if the existing fencing is appropriate for the site and provide feedback and make a determination if the existing fencing achieves the community's ethos, purpose, and principles as further detailed in the staff report. And here again is a photo of the existing fence. Oh, actually, I don't think I have photos of the existing fencing. But here is the elevation of the entry gate that's proposed. You will see that this is a black entry gate, the same color as many of the features of the main residence, and has 2 concrete board form posts on each side with lights proposed on either side as well. We'll get into the exterior lighting later in the presentation. Here's the proposed site plan with the location of significant trees proposed for removal. There are 4 significant trees for removal consisting all of which are consisting of coast live oaks. The project arborist has inventoried the significant trees and detailed reasoning for removal as summarized in the staff report. There's also 8 non-significant trees proposed for removal, one of which is in the conservation easement. This is a 100-inch eucalyptus tree and is labeled in green on your screen. While eucalyptus trees are not considered significant by the town's municipal code and are generally encouraged to be removed as they're non-native, can become invasive and create fire hazard, the conservation easement prohibits the removal of trees of any species greater than 12 inches in diameter from the conservation easement and would require ASCC approval for removal. The Conservation Committee has reviewed the project and has indicated support for removal of the on-site eucalyptus tree, as well as the removal of the English ivy that is growing up the eucalyptus tree. And here's the proposed site plan with the location of trees to be planted. A total of 48 trees are proposed to be planted. The Conservation Committee has recommended that the applicant plant 10 to 15 gallon size trees as they'll outgrow the larger pot sizes that are proposed within the plans within a few years. And here is the proposed planting plan. It consists of 62,577 square landscape plantings. Most plantings are proposed in natural groupings throughout the site, near the driveway court and residence extending to the creek and pool area. The landscaping is proposed to be vegetated with predominantly native plants. The planting list consists of trees, shrubs, perennials, and grasses. Plantings in the conservation easement include ferns and grasses to be used as bank stabilization. Shrubs and perennials are to be planted in select open areas not to impact native vegetation to remain. Temporary irrigation is proposed in the conservation easement, proposed above ground and will be removed after a 2-year establishment period. Town's Conservation Committee was generally supportive of the proposal and had suggestions related to the additional plant removal and maintenance, planting configuration, and the removal of non-native invasive species currently on site. The ASCC may want to provide additional feedback for proposed planting throughout the site. And here's the breakdown of grading. The project proposes 825 cubic yards of soil movement subject to site development permit at the ASCC level. The proposed amount of grading is proposed primarily to facilitate the location of the residence, site work, and driveway, including fire truck turnaround, retaining walls, and drive court retaining walls. And here's a zoomed in plan, site plan demonstrating the proposed exterior lighting for the first floor of the main residence, guest house, and garage, as well as the site lighting. The main residence includes 6 recessed lights in blue, 12 wall sconces in yellow in the trellis area and around the perimeter of the residence. The guest house proposes 2 small sconces in yellow at each door, and the garage proposes 1 wall sconce, also in yellow at its door. The retaining wall and site walls at the front of the residence near the auto court are shown in red, and all path lighting is shown in green. This slide shows the location of 2 wall lights proposed in the front entry gate shown in purple and the second story recessed lighting shown on the right in blue. The design guidelines recommend the exterior lighting should be located as close to the main building entries and key stairs and access ways as possible. It further indicates that projects should utilize the minimum amount of lighting necessary to achieve safety for pedestrians. Since their initial submission, the applicant team has reduced lighting throughout the site as recommended by town staff. The ASCC may wish to provide additional feedback related to the entry gate lighting, site lighting, and architectural lighting. And staff sent out a public notice to all neighbors and owners within 300 feet of the project in advance of the ASCC meeting. And the applicant team has conducted their own neighbor outreach and has received supportive comments from neighbors. These comments have been added to the staff report for ASCC review. No additional public comments have been received by staff to date. And here's a recap of the key items that the ASCC may wish to deliberate on this evening. That includes architectural review, site development permit, fences and entry gate, removal of significant trees, and the removal of the 100-inch eucalyptus in the conservation easement. That ends the staff presentation. Both town staff and the applicant team are available for questions by the ASCC. Thank you.
Thank you, Jake. Commissioners, do we have any questions? Commissioner Chung, Commissioner Breen?
I thought we did not ever approve lights on entry, at entry gates.
They're typically removed before they come to ASCC, and when they come to ASCC, they're typically conditioned out, but they're highly discouraged.
Thank you. All right, Commissioner Sill?
No questions.
All right, I just have one regarding the neighbour's fence for that runs along the line between 350 and 360. Do we know whether that fence was approved by the town or the ASCC at some point?
Not at this moment. It may take additional research for that. So any communications with the town and that owner would need to be reviewed for whether that permit was approved.
Right, it's just that obviously with that fence and it being a non-transit area for the wildlife, I think we would need to review that or look into that, whether or not it was approved, because it's obviously not the applicant's fence, it's the neighbour's fence.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah,
I'd like you to check on that also. Yeah, especially on the creek side.
Yeah, if the ASCC would like to provide additional feedback for what they would like to see that fence to be, and then in follow-up for a final fencing plan, we can confirm whether it has been approved and under what conditions, and then you can see that reflected in the final fencing plan.
Right, all right, thank you. With that, we'll hand over to the applicants for their presentation.
We have nothing else to add other than happy to answer your questions. And that, our goal is to help improve the site and the existing riparian corridor and conservation area. We're removing some buildings that are currently encroaching into that area. Create a minimal visual impact, if any, to the neighbors, and otherwise create a beautiful home for our clients and their young children to live in.
Right, thank you. All right, so we will go to comments from the public.
Well, I would have some questions for the,
Oh, sorry, questions for the applicant.
with regard to the fencing, I don't know if you were prior to this meeting of design guidelines to with the spirit of encouraging wildlife transit to those properties. And so the question is, if you were aware of that before, And, or if you were, what the intention of the fencing as it is being preserved and proposed.
So all of the fencing is existing and was there prior to our clients owning the property. And to our knowledge, it's all the neighbors fencing. There's portions of areas where it does seem to weave back and forth across the property lines, but otherwise they are all located along property lines with adjoining neighbors. Correct.
Yeah, I've got a couple of questions. Well, actually, I was hoping maybe you could speak to any sustainable aspects of the property that you might be excited about.
Sure, absolutely. I'd love to. Well, just in our firm itself, one of our initiatives is to get all of our new projects to net zero energy use. And we believe on this project, we will be able to do that with a large solar array on the roof and battery backup. And then also just general good design in highly insulated envelopes, shaded exterior glazing when we have south facing glazing. So we have overhangs and stuff like that. So the building itself consumes less energy. So that's one of our main goals. And again, a well insulated building envelope, very efficient HVAC systems, heating and air. We'll have car charging stations. Low embodied carbon is another thing that we're going for. So our concrete mixes have SCM replacement for low embodied carbon, among other things. A lot of the products we're using these days are going for low embodied carbon. So we're very focused on all of these things. We're also focused on going hand in hand with that wildfire resistance with non-combustible exterior materials, which we consider a sustainable feature because if the house burns down in 5 years, doesn't matter how many metals you give it for having sustainable features, it's not sustainable if it doesn't survive. So that's on our radar too.
Great, thank you for sharing that.
Of course.
Well, that's one thing I wanted to understand. So there's a lot of glass in the house, speaking of glazing.
Correct.
And so while we don't have a lot of exterior lighting, is there any kind of window treatment or window treatment for the nighttime that will prevent, especially second story light, from spilling across the creek and to those neighbors?
Yes, so all of the second story is all bedrooms, especially those rooms facing the creek. And so those would all have window treatments for nighttime privacy, if nothing else, but yes, to prevent any light pollution from spreading across the site.
I mean, that's the only thing I'm a little bit worried about is just that the light spill out through all that glazing.
Sure.
Okay. We'll talk about other stuff later, the landscaping, but those were my questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Sill?
Yeah, thanks. Just kind of following up on what Dana was bringing up about the light spill. I was a little concerned about the skylight over the entry area. That's a pretty big skylight. Is there going to be any shading on that to prevent, because and people often leave lights on all the time in that kind of an area?
It's a good question. I mean, skylights do have the ability to have operable shades, remote shades in them. So I think that's something we generally explore anytime we have skylights that are going to get a lot of direct sunlight, which this one will. So it's certainly something that we can consider. We have, throughout the design process, continued to reduce the size of that skylight. With something more architectural and less just a giant hole in the ceiling. So,
Okay, yeah, it's big.
yeah. I'll need to look here at the plan you're looking at, because again, we've continued to reduce that size over time. So right now what we're showing is on the roof plan, it would actually be a square skylight. From the inside, the architectural feature, what we're showing now is you can see the circle set within that. That's actually reducing the size of that skylight, or at least its openness to the interior of the home as an architectural feature, but just for practical reasons, square skylight, then build the round hole instead of the round skylight.
Okay, and so how big is it now?
So currently, the square skylight is 6 foot by 6 foot. The circle that would reduce the size is about 4 foot diameter.
Oh. Okay, so I think it'd be worth thinking about some sort of shading for that, but
Sure.
okay. Next question I had, there's like a little boulder garden underneath the second story extension. And it just, when I look at the plans, it looks like there's a lot of light for that area. Is there some particular reason why there is a need for a lot of light in that area? I think there's 4 fairly bright lights, recessed lights that light up that area.
And are you speaking to lighting shown on landscape plans? Or? Gotcha. Otherwise there for general illumination at night and being able to enjoy the space, but then anything else to add to that?
No, I think they're primarily for general lighting on the space.
Okay. And then the last question I had is, was there any thought to not doing any landscaping out in the conservation easement? I guess I was surprised that there's actually a reasonable amount of planting that's going on there, and you got to put irrigation in out there, so that means some significant disruption. It seemed to me just kind of a beautiful wild space. So I was wondering what drove the need to actually do real landscaping there.
Yeah, the landscape thing we're proposing is mainly restoration planting. Right now, there's a lot of invasive species and vinca and a lot of things growing
Okay.
out there now that we'd like to remove and purify that area.
Okay.
It's one of our favorite spots on the property. So.
Okay.
And the irrigation that we're showing there is all temporary, purely for establishment, and will be removed as soon as that's.
Okay. Great. Thanks a lot. That's it. for my question.
Right, thank you. I don't have any further questions to add.
I have one more that I forgot. The HVAC system and the pool equipment. When we were there, it has a feeling of an audit, the roundness of the property. I
Right.
want to make sure that there isn't sound spill also bouncing off of those walls. So where are they located? Where's the HVAC system?
So the HVAC systems for the house, they're a combination. They're outdoor units. For the main house, they will be located by the garage, the outdoor units, and then there's the indoor units. And then for the guest house, behind the guest house on the southern side of the property, southwestern corner, would be the outdoor unit there for the HVAC for the guest house, and then also the pool equipment. The HVAC units themselves, these days, the one that we are using are very quiet. Yeah, a lot better than it used to be. And so also very cognizant of that for our clients, them not hearing that either. So we believe they're located in a suitable position and shouldn't cause any sound issues for neighbors. I think the same thing with the pool equipment.
All right then, with that, we'll move over to public comment before bringing it back to commission discussion.
Great, thank you. I see that we do have one hand up in the virtual audience. Mary and Rob Jack. Mary and Rob Jack, if you can.
Oh, there we go. Hello. Hi. Thank you for taking my comment. The first one's technical. I'm sorry I can't be in the building with all of you. If you could just literally put your mics up to your mouth. The presenter, I'm hearing loud and clear, but the ASCC members around the circle, it's so hard to hear and there's not closed captions. So please put that mic right up to your mouth. Kenny, I want to hear every word you have to say and I can't hear you. So thank you for that.
Sorry.
About the project, I would, it's not really specific. It is specific to this project and to many others. I've been in the Valley for many years. The amount of lighting showing up now in new builds is well beyond anything in the design guidelines in Portola Valley. And I do understand that the paths and people want safety and the beauty of lighting, but Portola Valley is not the place for architectural lighting on homes. It's the place for some necessary lights, but not for extensive lighting. It's particularly path lightings, 37 path lights. Those are polka dots of light and across a broad range. You just don't know how far away people are seeing your property. I know where yours is located. I might not see it from my house, but someone will. It's almost like an airport landing strip effect. And I really urge the ASCC to really, please play tight on this. If there's a switch and a light, it will be used. Of course it will. If it's approved, it will be on. Some of them are now on all night. It's not fun to police people and say, turn off your lights. But if it's just minimal to start, it won't be a problem for all the neighbors and for the owls and the wildlife and all the other creatures that are cruising around our world when we are asleep or out of town or whatnot. So please, please cut down on those lights. There's lots of spill light coming out the windows. And I know it's lovely to have lighting, to not have a darkness outside your window, but it can be met with much fewer lights than I'm seeing on this project and on many, many others. So thank you for hearing and thanks for staying tough on it. It matters. It's Portola Valley. Thank you.
Right, thank you for your comment.
And I'm not seeing any other hands in the virtual audience, but we do have one in the room. Yeah, to the podium, please. Hi, I'm Ronnie Krasinski I'm the liaison tonight from the Planning Commission. I have one question, which is probably for Jake. So on the town's ground movement potential map, I gather that some of the structure will be on an area that was marked as having a deep slope movement. Starting on the red page 111 of the agenda packet, from the finding from Romig engineers was that there's not actually issue with the downslope movement of the ground. And they have a proposal there, a proposed modification to the town's map. And the question, I just don't quite understand what happens with that proposal. Does the ASCC take some action on that tonight? Or what do we do with that? That's a good question. So some additional background to the project. And the project site is in 2022, this project underwent a modification to the ground movement potential map. And so that was considered by the Planning Commission in, I believe, May of last year. And in that decision, the town geologist made a recommendation to the Planning Commission after reviewing the report prepared by Romig. And they made that recommendation to modify the maps so that the ground movement potential category was correct. And so it was essentially a process of ground truthing the ground movement potential for the site. And so that was approved and has led to the ability for the applicant to propose the construction as you see it today. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. All right. Do we have any more public comments on the Zoom?
I don't see any hands up in the virtual attendees. If anyone has a comment, please raise your hand, and there's no one else in the room other than the applicants to have public comment. So still seeing no hands.
All right. In that case, we'll close the public comment and bring it back to the commission for discussion. Commissioner Chung, would you like to go first?
Um, I, I would defer to the my fellow commissioners who have made a site visit.
All right then.
To go first.
Commissioner Sill, would you like to start us off?
I would love to start us off. Okay. The great proposal, spectacular lot. You know, it's really hard to find fault in the basic concept here. I think that the architectural thinking behind it in terms of how the site is laid out is excellent. You know, with that, it brings along a few challenges, right? You know, with the way the fire truck turnaround is and the garage is, sort of forces you to be up against the limit on impervious surface. You know, in this case, I think that's a reasonable trade-off. I think that what you proposed really works. So usually I would complain some about the amount of impervious surface, but in this case, I wouldn't. I like that you haven't gone super excessive on the heights, so that you've got a full 2-story structure and it's only 24 feet high. I think that's great. The garage and the guest house are both modest in terms of their height. So in terms of the actual impact on the environment, I think it's great. I am a little uncomfortable with the amount of landscaping area, but I realize probably a third of that is just work that you're doing in the conservation easement, and that over time will return to a more wild state. So I am that helps me accept sort of the landscaping plans. I'm happy to see that you're proposing planting more than just coast live oaks. Very often, that's all we see. And the fact that you have a mix of valley oaks and black oaks and blue oaks and coast live oaks, I think that's great. I just am thrilled to see that. There may be, a few more trees than is really necessary, but in general, I think your proposed plantings on the trees in particular, but the plants in general, I find to be pretty good. We talked a little bit about the skylight. I am a little worried about the light still there from both the windows and that big skylight. So I guess I would like to see some shading on that big skylight. The number of pool lights sort of struck me at first, but then I noticed they're very low lumens. The path lights are relatively low lumen to me too, so I'm not wound up about them. The lights that bothered me were really the lights at the outdoor dining area and then the lights over that little boulder garden, because to me, those are fairly bright lights. And in both of those cases, I felt like you had about twice as many lights as needed. You could light up the space, but neither of those seemed to me to be necessitate the amount of brightness that you've got. I think that the gate entry that you proposed is great. I don't think it should have any lights. The fencing, that's kind of a complicated one since it's not your fencing. So I don't know what to say about it, but the barbed wire fence, hopefully you can get rid of that. It's not attractive and it doesn't seem like it suits what you want to do. The horse fence out in the front area, that's nice. That one I wouldn't do anything with. And the 6-foot wire wood fence, that one's going to take some discussion with your neighbors. I didn't find it particularly objectionable, even though it doesn't really follow our guidelines. But if you could get rid of it, it'd be better. But I don't think it would give me incredible heartburn if you couldn't get rid of it. I could see how your neighbor, it looked like a relatively new fence. They may not be interested in taking it down. Let's see. Other things, I thought that the material choices were great. I really like the appearance of the house and the renderings that you've done, and the same with the plant palette. I talked about that. I thought your choice of plants was very good. Let's see, what else have I got buried in here? And I think that the site plan is quite good. There was a lot of challenges in terms of topography, creek setback, conservation easement, odd shaped lot, to get everything in that you wanted to get in and then still have lots of natural areas. You know, I think it's a great design. I think that's it. I think that's the extent of my comment.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Sill. Commissioner Breen.
I'm totally smitten by this project. I think it's fabulous. I'm so excited. Let's talk landscape. I think that there should be no lights on the front gates. That's kind of the way it goes in town. This is a dark place and you need to embrace that. Because that's just the way it is and it's good. It's wonderful. Landscape plan, I mean, I think it's great. All the different manzanitas you're using, I love them. The oaks that you did use a range of oaks, but you know, you have a big live oak right out where the eating area is. And just with all the leaf fall and trying to walk, you know, on hard, I would change that to a different oak. But I shouldn't say things like that. That's your thing. I'm just saying that, but I played this game in my head is what if this was my house? You know, I mean, that kind of thing. The challenge, you better get mowing or you're going to be in very big trouble with trying to start your meadows. Because if those seeds stay and then you plant your meadows, you're just going to be in a hell of a mess as they germinate, the seeds germinate and come up through your meadows. So native meadows, there's nothing harder than a native meadow. You're gonna put plugs in and all of that stuff, and then it's up to you guys and your eyeballs to figure out what doesn't belong in that meadow. And it's very challenging, but it's the right thing to do for this property. You know, what I said today about the ethos of this property and the oaks, I would take those redwoods down, you know, in the back and have it be about the majesty of the trees that you have back there. So, you know, other than that, you know, I think less is more on landscaping on this property. I like the idea of the pistache in the front just for color and the meadows. And other than that, I would leave it the hell alone. So I think it's magnificent. I think the design is great. Like I said, I was worried about all of the interior lighting because of the glass, but I think you just keep your consciousness up about that. You know, path lights, I don't know if you're not troubled by them. I just think it would be nice if they were on a switch. So if you're going to go out, you could turn them on and then they get turned off. So, or some sort of treatment that they go off, because it does get to be kind of creepy when you go to these houses and everything's lit up, you know, these pathways. But this is such a different, beautiful site. You know, it's just the vernacular of Portola Valley right there. So, I mean, I hope you guys put your arms around that. I'm so excited for you. And so I'll listen to everybody else talk and then I want to maybe say a few more things, but you better get mowing fast. And then get as much down the tree, the bays, let it be about those oaks. Yeah, it's just spectacular. And then I love it that you did plant oaks in front of the guy's fence who has all the redwood trees, because maybe he'll get comfortable with his privacy and then you could start to navigate with him about because it'll be so sad to have a row of mature redwoods, you know, and they're just babies. So, okay, thank you.
Thank you. Kelly, would you like to say anything before I comment? Or?
Yes, particularly if you have to go last.
Okay. All right. Then.
Procedural reasons. I don't have much to add beyond what's been said. It did occur to me. I mean, do we have the residents here? You will be getting mailers from the Woodside Fire Department about what they recommend for fire safety, and it's probably the same kind of information that the insurance company is looking for as well. And one of the things that you're gonna see is a lot about how close trees are to the property. And so when you're talking about adding trees and you have some commissioners who maybe feel like there are a few extra trees needed, you might save a bit of money or something. Thinking about trees that are really close. Beyond that, what struck me without visiting the site, so sorry I couldn't make it. Wasn't anything beyond what we hear from Al and Vanna. I really appreciate the effort towards sustainability in so many different aspects of the site, and I agree that it appears to embrace the natural beauty of the site. Appreciate that.
I made a note when I first went on site and I want the people who phoned in to hear this. There's very little offsite impact on this property. So really nobody can see it, which is extremely unusual. So, I mean, even that the 2-story works. I mean, it's just the design really works for the site. So if you are worried about lighting, nobody can see this place. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Kenny. Right, well, I don't really have a lot to add to the comments of my fellow commissioners, other than I'm delighted that the eucalyptus will be coming down, because I think there are, even you can see on the roof, you've got the debris from the eucalyptus coming down, and it's such a fire hazard. So I'm really pleased that they're disappearing. I also was initially concerned about the amount of impervious surface that there was going to be, but then seeing the driveway, that's probably a considerable amount of the extra, because we normally don't like to see zero left on anything. We want a bit more. I'm concerned about the shading and the lantern effect of the lighting inside, like the other commissioners, but I'm hoping that you will take that into consideration when thinking of all the light treatments, including the skylight in the front hallway. And with regard to the fencing, I think it's going to have to be a discussion with the neighbours, and then coming back to the town for checking whether or not the fences meet with the approval of our fencing ordinance. I agree with the removal of the lighting at the gate post. I think there's normally going to be a small light on the keypad for when you get in, so that if you had your number, you know, the number there, that wouldn't affect you too much. I'd also suggest that you follow the recommendations of the Conservation Committee with regard to the sizing of the trees. And if you did want to follow the suggestions of reducing the number of trees slightly, I don't think you need to do it hugely, because you're going to be looking at a beautiful property. And if you've got lots of trees in front of it, so because they do grow. And again, I think reiterating Commissioner Breen's comment, you've got some marvelous native landscape in there, but the thistles and the vinca are just blocking it all out. And I think I was told once that for every thistle you pull, you're saving yourself pulling 6 next year. And the amount of thistles you have, you're going to be doing it for years. I can tell you now, you're going to still find them popping up everywhere. So the sooner you can start on that, the better.
It'll be worth it.
It will. Yes. So I think that's all of my comments. Unless anybody else has anything to add.
On the skylight shades, the automatic solar shades are a beautiful thing. The quality of the light, especially the direct sunlight, is so much better. You can close those shades for something like that. And then it's even your ability to light the place, or the quality of the light inside at night is better if you have a reflective surface. So you'll probably end up putting that in. Anyway.
Well, I do have one thing to add. A master switch for all the exterior lighting is normally a good idea, because then when you go to bed at night, you can switch everything off and you're not going to disturb any of the nocturnal animals that may be passing through. So that might be something else that we can recommend.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. I think just the idea of the path lights being on, a motion sensor or timer or a combination of the two, something so that they will never stay on for an extended period of time, I think is important.
That property needs to stay dark because of the habitat. I mean, I bet there's no other property in town like that habitat was. But animals are just being born all over the place.
I never saw a deer sleep till I moved here. It's like those kinds of things. You want to keep. You don't want to scare them away.
Need a wildlife camp.
Several. All right. Now, as I understand it, it was basically an ASCC commission decision as to whether or not this was a preliminary or going forward for approval this evening. From what I'm hearing, there isn't a lot to say that we want it to be preliminary. So
Yeah, that would be my take. I think that we're ready to make a motion and approve it.
yes. Do I have
Anything coming back to?
Well, I would bring once there's a real fencing plan, give them a chance to talk to their neighbors. And then I think one ASCC commissioner should review a fencing plan. But other than that, I mean, from my point of view, I think that the things that are important are different than the plan. I think no lights on the entry gate. And I would say skylight shading for the big skylight, and then a fencing plan to be approved. Other than that,
Is lighting for the rock garden something that you wanted? The lighting in the rock garden, was that something you wanted?
we want to review the lighting if we ask for a small reduction, slight reduction
yeah, there probably ought to be a review
of the
plan.
lighting
Yeah.
plan. All right, sorry.
I just have a clarification. You're asking about a fencing plan, but we are not proposing any fencing and there's none on our property. So is that, are you asking for a requirement?
No, I
for-
think it's that the fencing has to come back
Uh,
from all the neighbours to comply with the fencing ordinances of the town, but I don't think
It's not.
it's connecting it to this application.
Okay,
is it?
thank you.
The way that the report is drafted is so that all existing fencing is brought into compliance. And so while much of the fencing is not directly related to this project and is existing, we want to bring it into compliance. So if there are any general feedback that you would like to provide for that fencing and what a final fencing plan could look like, we would appreciate that as they continue to work with their neighbors for targeting those feedback and goals. And then ultimately, I recommend that you do take a look at the final fencing plan to make sure that it is to the ASCC satisfaction.
I've already made contact with the barbed wire people, wrote them an email, and so we'll see if we can just make that work.
Right, because I think that's the major,
Yeah,
the
major.
major objection would be to the barbed wire.
Yeah, I
fencing.
mean, I'm sure we can get it down.
Right, yeah, in my mind, that's the one that really needs to go.
Yes, and apparently it's the neighbours put it in, and they're not even sure, well, from what I could gather this afternoon, the neighbours weren't even, may not even know it's there.
I don't think they do. And I think we can get that done. So do you think there'll be any changes to the landscape plan? I'm worried about these meadows and how they're going to happen, especially with all of the pollution on the property, the pollution from the seeds. I mean, you feel pretty confident that these meadows can be done well? There's a lot.
Yeah, I believe they can. We've,
Okay.
we're used to extensive meadow restoration and have worked with clients to do acres of meadow restoration to pure California habitat. So we feel confident in our ability to
Even
do
buy
that.
Danfonia?
Absolutely.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow. All right, well, I mean, I'm dying to see this happen. I'm so excited,
It's gonna
but
be gorgeous.
I just don't, you guys are gonna have to learn to weed, give you a weeding lesson.
That's right.
I was wondering how old the children were. No, they're not gonna weed though, are they?
Free labor.
Mine are 2 and 4. They're really good at reading. in general.
And also with the
possible.
thistles, if you pull them and just leave them in the pile, they still seed.
Get
So
them
you've got to actually get them off the property in those green bins and just
tomorrow.
send them away.
Okay, let's, what additional
direction do you need from us on the fencing?
So far, I have direction that the barbed wire fence is recommended for removal. There is direction from the 6-foot fence to talk to the neighbor about, I guess, and confirm whether or not it's been approved in the past. But if there's something that you would like that 6-foot fence to be, we would appreciate feedback in that direction. And then there's also the 4-foot fence at the front right of the driveway, which overlaps a
one.
little bit with the property line, but not a lot. It's
That
connected
That
to
one's
the.
okay anyway, right? That
Split
conforms to
rail,
our
isn't
guidelines.
It technically conforms, yes. And since this property is uniquely shaped, it's hard to determine whether or not some of these fences conform.
Yeah.
So if you find that they meet the ethos of the fencing ordinance, those principles that were laid out in the staff report, then you have the authority to approve it as is. But if you'd like to see changes, we would like that feedback here and we can implement that into a final fencing plan to be reviewed by 1 or 2 cases.
So yeah, I think that the barbed wire fence, we definitely would like to see go away. I think that the 4-foot horse fence. Fine.
It has got wire mesh though. Behind it. So it had you had the horse, the little one on the driveway on the right, as we were going down on the right hand side, didn't have
Right.
wire. But the one round the side going up,
Yeah, that wasn't
that
really a
had-
horse fence, but yeah.
but it was a sort of
Yeah.
split rail, but it had wire, square wire fence, metal behind it.
Yeah, so I would say that the 4-foot split rail on the right side as you're going down is fine. The barbed wire fence is not fine under any condition. And we need to figure out how to get rid of that. And Dan, it sounds like she's making good progress there. And the both the 4-foot and the 6-foot wire mesh fences, wood wire mesh. To me, that's a discussion with the neighbors. I could see that the neighbors are going to be reluctant to take those out because those are in pretty good shape and they look taken care of, and they may want those fences. But if you could get rid of them, that'd be great, but it's not as easy to say and get rid of them.
No, but we'd also need to check with the neighbour fence between 360 and 350, that was permitted at the time.
Yes, so that can be done in the progress of preparing the building permit. And before final building permit approval, we would just need to make sure that, what we can provide additional background for that permitting that may have or may have not taken place. And then 1 or 2 ASCC members could do the final approval should that fence need to change.
Right, so the onus basically is not going to be on the applicants here for the fencing, it's going to be on the surrounding neighbours.
So for any fencing that's on the property, which some of these fences kind of, I guess, meander onto the property, we would want to bring those into compliance where possible, but where there's shared neighboring property lines, the onus is on both neighbors. They both have responsibilities in maintaining that fence. So we understand that the other owners aren't at this meeting and may be uncomfortable to even sometimes navigate these conversations. But it's the general direction that new site development does require bringing property features into conformance. So this is why we'll be looking for feedback on how best to navigate. And this site in itself is irregular in shape and hard to apply those rules. So it's not as straightforward as we'd like it. But with the discretionary review and approval, we feel like we can navigate to a solution.
Right,
that
so we
works in
could
building
just
permit phase.
basically recommend that the applicants continue discussions with the neighbours regarding those fences, and that when the final permit is coming through, that somebody from the town reviews the fences along with an ASCC member, so that we're not holding up anything.
Yes, that would be feasible, right?
I'd also just, for the record, like to say I was very surprised at 850 cubic yards of grading. And I just want to make sure that as the property gets graded, you know, that doesn't change. The character of the bowl doesn't change. No berms, no, nothing like that. 850, that's a lot of, I don't even know where that comes from, but
The driveway.
so it is the driveway. I was going to ask if it was the driveway.
And then there's some digging the garage into the hillside.
Yeah, some digging the garages.
Yeah, yeah. It seems like it was reasonable.
Okay, good. I just don't want the character of the site to change. And did you guys figure out about the fire, whatever they're called? Hydrants.
The conditions of approval speak to what's required for the fire hydrant, so they will need to comply with what's been set forth. I'm not sure if it requires a new fire hydrant, but with the extension of the driveway, they are having the turnaround areas appropriate for that. And
That was what I was going to say. If you have to have one, put it where the turnout is. Okay.
Right. Okay, so do we have any more items to discuss before we ask somebody to attempt a motion for approval of this project, not a preliminary?
Al, you've been taking notes.
Yeah,
Can
want
you
me to
make
take
a motion?
Crack at it?
It's-
Okay.
I'll
and
forget
Feel
some.
free to
I'll forget.
add on
Oh,
or
Do we,
modify.
do we need to put in something about the eucalyptus, because isn't that the conservation easement?
I think that there's just general agreement that
The
we would like
eucalyptus
to see the
go,
eucalyptus
but I
go
think we
in
had
the
to
con-
say something specific.
You do not say anything specific. It's already been conditioned into the conditions of approval. So with the approval, we'll solidify that.
Including stump removal.
There's some stumps that they want to leave for stability in the.
Can't leave a stump of a eucalyptus.
No,
or
yeah,
you'll
maybe
have
not
a
the
10-foot
but-
eucalyptus the
right.
next year.
But I don't think it was the eucalyptus. but
I
whether
believe
it-
the town geologist had requested that the stump of the eucalyptus that was closest to the creek bank, I think it was tree 11, remain for bank stabilization. There's no specific direction for the 100 eucalyptus. So that would be
Doesn't
to
make
the
any
discretion.
sense to leave a eucalyptus trunk. It'll be,
Cut it down next year.
yeah, you can.
That's what I have to do with my bay trees.
Really?
Right, I've taken bay trees down and then every year I have to.
Wow.
I get another.
You
50
get
feet.
another, what would eucalyptus, it's more like 10 feet a year. All right,
But if you're,
get
you
it.
know, if you're on a hillside, you don't want to be sliding into a creek.
no, of course.
I thought we had to, I did think we had to say something specific about approving the removal of that eucalyptus in the conservation easement.
Yeah, it is a part of your decision tonight, and it can be formalized in a motion. If you'd like to add a statement in there for it, you may. But I do believe it's in the conditions of approval, so we'd be able to move forward with just the motion for that.
Okay,
Rock and
Right.
roll.
here we go. So I move that we approve the project with the conditions as proposed, with modifications that we make clear that it is okay, that we would like to see the eucalyptus in the conservation easement area removed, that there be no lights on the entry gate, that the entryway skylight be shaded, that the fencing plan to be approved by one ASCC commissioner before building permit issued, and that the lighting plan be reviewed by one ASCC commissioner with the objective to reduce some amount of the lights and also to implement some switching strategy so that the path lights or any of the exterior lights cannot be left on for an extended period.
I'll second that motion.
For clarification, when you said before the building permit was approved, do you mean the issued? Would that be I was thinking more the final,
Oh,
because we don't want the permit. We don't want the fencing to hold up the whole
yeah,
application.
that's a good idea.
Yeah.
All right. The fencing plan to be approved by one ASCC commission before
That's an okay way to move forward. You can note that.
Okay.
Second.
All those in favour?
Bravo.
You're approved.
you.
And we all want to come back and visit.
Right, yeah, it's gonna be an incredible place. Thank you, everybody. Okay.
Right,
Thank you for your
very
time,
much.
commissioners.
Right. So I think the next item on our agenda. Thank you very much. Good luck. Commission reports. From, has anybody,
I had a brief, it's sort of in progress, discussions with Laura and one of the conservation committee members. Judy. I'm trying to look up exactly what the address was, but
is it the one on Westbridge?
yes.
Zoning Westbridge?
I've got a lot to say about
What's
I
that.
the
know,
number?
let's hear what you've got to say, Ken,
Um,
about the zoning one.
well, we were discussing, so the landscape plan has been back. And we were looking at, in particular, the redwood trees by the guest house and screening for the generator. And I think there's still some things that need to be reviewed regarding the sort of linearity of the redwood tree.
Well, as far as I remember, we said we did not want 4 redwood trees there. We'd asked him to stagger them and we'd asked him to reduce them to 3,
That's exactly what I remember.
but
So-
he hasn't done that yet.
And there's a question of what counts as staggered.
As
Staggered. So up and down the road, if you look at them, they can be, they are not in a perfect line.
They're not in a perfect line, but they're in an unnatural.
If you're facing them from the road, they're evenly spaced. And they're certainly not in a configuration that you would find redwood trees.
Right.
That's, the view from up and down the road. See them is not terrible because you can't tell that they're evenly spaced across the road. But if we ask them to, ask them to pick one tree out to make it look like a more natural grouping, and they have not done that, then obviously we can improve it.
I mean, that's what, we conditioned some other approval on them doing that. So
Yeah.
all we're saying is they need to go do what they've already.
We never approved the redwoods way back when I was on.
No,
We didn't approve the redwoods, but then they came back and there was some other thing that we had to approve.
They got
And-
conservation committee consent.
he
for the
he
redwoods
came
after
back
that.
having, okay, so he came back to us having said that he managed to get the conservation committee to agree to the redwoods because he had some person find an underground stream,
Well, they,
supports the trees, and we disagreed with the number of trees and asked and requested that they be reduced to 3 and that they be more naturally grouped. And that did not go down well.
No, it didn't. And
And also, we were not keen on the generator being on the brow of a hill because it's sat there like a,
this is,
what is
I
it called?
think
What
it's
are
a strange, but it's like, it's a beautiful house and it's a generator.
And the
sort of
parking
blocking
lot at the
view of
bottom
the house.
building. There are always lots
It's
and lots of
strange.
cars there, I think.
Sorry, Kendra.
What do you mean?
No, I didn't hear what you said.
It does seem strange that the generator, because it doesn't look good. And
No.
There's all this effort towards a house that looks good. And there's a generator. Front and center. But
But the generator, I thought, my recollection from that meeting is that there was a disagreement between the planning staff and the applicant's team as to whether or not it was placed legally.
Right.
And there was we had to go figure out if it was placed legally, and in the meeting, I thought we said, if it's placed legally, it can stay and it needs to be screened. If it's not placed legally, if it's actually beyond into the setback, then it needs to be moved. And so there was a key element was deciding, is it really in a legal location? And if it is, then we need to do some screening so that you can't see it.
And I
There was,
think, to put it mildly, he was not happy
Yeah.
with what we said.
He wasn't, but still,
I
I
know,
mean-
but that was,
that doesn't change what we.
no,
arrived at.
there was a procedural issue, which was that the generator, there was a representation of the generator in the previous document that had been. So as long as it was placed legally, I remember my position was that since the body had approved it, we were compelled to allow it to stay, but we, obviously we could still require screening. And so I think Conservation Committee was going to have another look at exactly what the choices of plants were, because I think there was just a number of just one choice. of plant. Thought that there should be some diversity there.
so another
And that's
fence
been-
on top of that hill,
No,
around the generator,
no, just plants.
plants.
Yeah, it
okay,
seems like you
so-
should be able to do it with just some toy on or.
I think
lemonade
that, I
barrier.
think it
There's
was toy
some
on,
plants that are the right size.
but that's all they
They'll
had
be
was
able
the
to
toy
screen
on.
Right.
So
yeah.
that's sort of in progress.
I
Okay.
know that's their favorite size.
Okay, we're in public.
Okay,
All right then.
I have some that I worked on also. Are you done with that one?
Yes.
Okay,
Thank you, Ken.
so, I reviewed some architectural changes to 501 Wayside. You reviewed, I think, landscaping, right? But there were actual changes which were not completely unexpected. I think when we originally saw that project, they said there might have to be changes because of cost constraints. And as they got into it, there were some issues. So there was some stone siding that was replaced with hardy plank board and that, and I thought it was better. I mean, it seemed like it was an improvement. There's a few areas of foundation cement that were previously covered with stone that are now exposed, and to me, it looked fine. They had corrugated metal proposed in several locations beneath the deck area. Previously it was stone siding, and again, I thought it looked quite good. And the roofing material was changed from standing seam to asphalt shingles, and it was fine. I thought that everything that they were proposing made sense, particularly in the context of they had warned us that they might do that direction. Then I also had a discussion or email exchange with Dale Kane from Free Hillbrook, who we discussed in our last meeting. And he just asked me for some feedback on updates that they were making. And it seemed to me that all of the things that we had asked for, they were on the right path. You know, they were removing pines, removing eucalyptus. They were proposing to remove lighting in the carport, going from 4 lights to 2 lights. They were going to remove the metal fence that was falling down out along Alpine and replace it with a horse fence. And they were going to reduce the planting density by about 20%. And so everything, I gave them positive feedback. And that's all I think.
Dana? No? Nothing? No? Okay. Well, I, along with Al, reviewed 501 Wayside because I think we actually needed 2
Oh,
for
okay.
the building.
Oh, yeah,
So that's what,
right. That's right. We needed two.
and also had done the landscape. I'm quite happy with all the plans they've made, and hopefully he's ongoing with that one. The only other thing I had, which wasn't official, but was a neighbour request, was a panic from a neighbour on Fawn Lane who had been told that they couldn't have their gas line repaired, and they thought they needed new electrical pumps and everything because their gas line had failed under the house. So they had to have a permit to build over the house, but I think there was a bit of confusion as to whether or not it was a new build or retrospective. So, but that's all been dealt with now. So that was the only other thing that I think this time. So I think that closes commission reports and we now move over to Jake or Thomas for a town report.
Yeah, from the staff, we have nothing. Since we're filling in for Laura, there's really not much for us to update you on. Laura will be back at the next ASCC meeting, and it was a real pleasure to be able to staff this meeting. And, so thank you. And, just a friendly reminder that we'll need public comment for this section.
All right then. Okay, let's open the public comment section for this item.
And we just have one person in the audience here who does not have a public comment. And then virtually, I see no hands raised, but if anyone virtually would like to make a comment, please raise your hand so that we may promote you to comment. Seeing no hands raised.
All right, let's close our public comments then for that section and move on to the approval of the minutes, which I think we now may be able to do because we have 4 of us here. Yeah, but you would have.
I would have to refuse.
Right. So we have do we have any comments on the minutes?
So my
Anyone?
comments are, let's see, the ones from March 27th are okay. When I reviewed them, the ones from March 10th are okay. The ones from the last meeting, I
April
thought had a mistake, or I don't know. It certainly, the way they were captured didn't match my recollection. There's one place where on page 2 of those minutes talks about, let me actually pull it up so I get this right. Yeah, at the bottom of the second page of the minutes from May 22nd, it says, it was noted that planning staff handles requests for review of follow-up plans on applications, and applicants should not be reaching out directly to ASCC members regarding these follow-ups. That's not what my comment was. My comment was that planning staff was sending out requests to the whole commission and not specifying a particular commissioner.
Right, I
And it
remember
became
that.
unclear who was going to actually do it. So what we want to do is make sure that when planning staff sends out a request, it goes to a particular commissioner or 2 commissioners, if 2 is the right number, but that it shouldn't ever just go out to the general
Oh,
commission.
to everybody, just as a free field.
Right.
I do remember you. Remember that. Okay.
So that's
We
the
weren't here
one
for that
change
meeting,
that.
no.
So my only comment is that I'm listed as both present and absent for that meeting.
That's for the May 22nd meeting.
Yeah, I was in fact absent.
Okay.
Oh, you
That's
mean
like
the
the
May the
proverbial
Schrodinger's
Schrodinger's cat.
Schrodinger's commissioner.
Is this I've got May the 5th. I've got March the 27th, April the 10th, and May the 5th.
Oh, I got me
It
22nd.
was
Mine
that's
says
a mistake.
I think it's a
Because
mistake
it's a
on the
mistake.
agenda.
I
and
caught it on
May
the agenda.
22nd.
Right, because, yes, okay.
So for the record, it's the May 22nd,
Yeah.
2023 ASCC minutes that you are reviewing and making amendments to.
But on the agenda, it said the 5th.
Okay. So then can we vote to approve? It'd be good if we could approve these just because it's starting to,
Yes,
Back up.
we're starting to pile up. So,
We would like to move
I
forward
can
with making a motion for each individual minutes. And the May 22nd minutes, sounds like you'll be making amendments to. And we should also open this up to public comment prior to making that motion.
right, so
So one round of public comments for 3 different motions for clarification there.
okay,
I can make a motion to pass the May 23rd minutes because I was there.
22nd.
22nd.
second.
Oh, wait, you're ready?
Hang on.
Yeah, that's the one I want to see.
Yeah,
edited.
yeah, with
Okay.
your edit.
Okay.
And prior to that formal motion and vote, we'll need public comment.
Right, and then Kenny would also need to be either absent or present. But can't be both. You weren't here. Yeah, yeah. sorry,
Okay.
Right,
We
so
do
public comment.
now?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, so public comment on the approval of the minutes for May the 22nd, 2023.
So this is public comments for all three items. If you have any public
okay.
comments for the minutes for the March 27th, 2023 meeting, the April 10th, 2023 meeting, and the May 22nd, 2023 meeting.
We thought you meant we had to do it for each
Yeah.
then.
Oh, I apologize. I may have said it wrong or, but one round of comments for all three cumulatively.
That's different, okay. Right, all right, so we're fine for and I've now lost the page. March 27th, April the 10th, and May 22nd, 2023, with the edits suggested by Commissioner Sill and Commissioner Chung for the May 22nd meeting. We're opening for public comment.
And if you are virtually attending the meeting and you'd like to make that comment, please raise your hand now, so that way we may promote you to comment. And there is one member of the public present physically, and it looks as though he has no comments. Confirming that. And there are no hands raised virtually still.
In that case, I will close public comment for this item and come back to the commission for voting and approval. Right, so a motion, please.
Motion.
I made a motion for the May 22nd.
Do you not want to do them all three?
Can we do it
I,
now?
I,
Well, Dana may not feel like she can vote.
I
on all
can't
three.
vote
If you-
on
Okay.
the other ones, and he can't vote on the
Yeah.
22nd. So,
Okay.
And we should do a roll call vote for each of these since there are members who are not present.
Seconded May the 22nd. All those in favor? Aye. Aye.
So I'll go ahead and take a roll call for that one. And we'll start with Commissioner Chung. Abstain. from that. Abstain. And Commissioner Green.
yes,
And Commissioner Wilson.
Yes.
Commissioner Sill.
Yes.
Great, motion passes.
I did think that Laura said that last time that we could just do it with a vote of hands now. No, but maybe,
That actually, so if everyone is present at the meeting who is voting, you may do a roll call vote. And I guess with the challenges of recusing and not being present, I thought it would be an okay idea to go ahead and do roll call just to keep our bases covered.
okay, thank you. All right.
Okay, and how about if I make a motion to approve the March 27th meeting minutes as written?
I'll second that.
Okay, and I'll go ahead and take a roll call then. Commissioner Chung,
Yes.
Commissioner Breen,
Yes.
abstain. Commissioner Wilson
Aye.
and Commissioner Sill.
Yes.
And I'll make a motion to approve the minutes for April 10th.
And I'll second.
Okay, Commissioner Chung.
Yes.
Commissioner Breen,
Abstain.
abstain.
Yes.
And Commissioner Wilson, yes. And Commissioner Sill.
Yes.
Thank you.
all righty.
Good job.
Right. In
And then I
which
think we're
case
ready
we
to
can
adjourn the meeting.
Adjourn the meeting. All right, thank you, everyone.
All right.